to make sure that we're planning and wealth accumulation, estate planning. So as Anthony said, and it's amazing planners that we do have, we want to make sure that as we transition, we leave something back towards our family. And unfortunately, there's a lot of GoFundMe accounts that we have to create, and a lot of times it doesn't really talk about the impact in future generations. So I would say just part of those foundational concepts: budgeting, wealth accumulation, wealth management, risk management, debt planning, and I would say that would pretty much be the first. And we can obviously go into deeper detail into that, but I think just with an understanding, that would be the first.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. So I guess, Maria, I'd love to hear from you. You know, how do you define prosperity within the context of a community? And what steps can individuals take in local business state to contribute to this vision?
Wow, prosperity as it applies to the community. I would say our, what is the word I think of? The way we treat ourselves and our environment. You know, I used to be the block president on 120th Street, and we did stuff like, and this was before gentrification, and we did stuff like tree planting in the wells, and for Christmas we got wreaths for all of the houses. We had a block party every year, you know. That was our prosperity. All of us were homeowners, but remember, we all got our houses in 1980, you know. So that's when no one wanted them. But we took care of our houses, and that's prosperity. And I think it's still continuing. It's changed a little because there's more diversity. But that's prosperity in community, if you ask me.
I like that. And I guess Jeanna, for you, you know, I know. Well, actually, come back to Maria. You know, because Rob and I, when we were planning for this event, you know, Maria, you took advantage of brownstones back when no one wanted to invest. And so, tell us that story. Like, what was that courage that you had to have to take advantage of brownstones? Because I mean, if you Google brownstones in Brooklyn and Harlem, you know, talk about 1,000 to 10,000, talk about 1,000 to 10 million, right? So just talk us through that mindset you had at the time when you went ahead and took that leap of faith to make that investment.
Yeah. So my son is also a ball player, and you know, we lived in an apartment. We were apartment dwellers, quite frankly, and all of us were. I mean, we really didn't have a whole lot of idea about buying houses, but I wanted my son to be able to bounce his basketball. I'm not joking. So I went looking for a house, and that was probably 1984, and it took us 3 years to find a house, and I was looking every single day, weekend, whatever, you know, and the prices just kept going up. So as we're saving, you know, $2,000 for the down payment, now, you know, the house went from $50,000 to $100,000. So now, and then even when we bought the house, when they say closing, they meant close your checking accounts, your saving account, you know, and live week to week. No, you're not getting paid this month. You're gonna have to wait, you know. But it was a great investment, and quite frankly, I wish that I had the foresight to buy more. I did get another one, which was a good investment. I mean, and we're talking about like $470,000. We're not talking about a lot of money, you know. Most of them needed, you know, construction. This house needed construction. Everything you see is new. The floors are new. Everything is new. The plumbing's new. You don't see any wires. That's because they're rolling the walls, you know. So that's how it started. You know, I bought a building in Crown Heights, but development is different than owning your own home. You know, it's a completely different mindset. Tenants are, so that was a disaster. And you know, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're just going to make mistakes. And it was, I would say, a little costly. I pretty much broke even, so I consider that costly. You because you're supposed to make money, you're not supposed to break even. But I learned a lot, and had I known today, then what I know today, forget it, I would have cleaned up. But, so that's how I got into it.
Thanks for sharing that story. I think it's good because, to be honest, I mean, without you, Maria, I don't think we would all be here today had you not made that investment many years ago. Now we have an art gallery. We have a wealth management firm coming here. We can partner, do this type of events. It won't be the last one they'll be having here. So that's just the impact of economic development, empowerment, and also community prosperity. Now, Jeanna, love to hear from you. So my question to you is, what barriers do you see in our community as it relates to creating a proper estate plan?
I'm looking at you now, all of you, the audience, and you probably would say, well, I don't need a will or a trust or whatever now. I'm too young for that. You're not. One of the barriers is lack of knowledge and the consequences of not preparing for your future and for your family's future. You could, in New York City, die tomorrow. And as a result of that, what you have accumulated so far without an estate plan is going to pass through state laws and testacy laws, in which your spouse may get 50%, and then the children, but there is a lineage there that the law determines who gets what and not you. And so it's important for you, as you start building wealth, to start thinking of estate planning. How am I going to keep this property or this asset within my family? How can I protect it against creditors? And as you build, you can always change your estate plans. They don't stay the same because your wealth is increasing. So you amend it and you continue to change it as you go along. So the second part is that a lot of us don't know how to talk to attorneys or don't know how to find a good attorney. There's language, if an attorney is dismissive to you and is not listening to what you want, then that's not the attorney for you in building an estate plan. It's important that you express your ideas of how you want your property to be conveyed. And that attorney should draft the plans as long as it's within the bounds of the law according to what you want, not what they think is right for you. They're going to tell you the pitfalls and all of that, but if you're willing to take those risks, then so be it. But that's the second thing. And then trying to find one, I think I said that. But the bar associations, you can reach out to them. You can get referrals from friends or family members. That's important too. But make sure that their experience is a good experience. I've had clients who have wills and trusts and don't even know what the terms are because the attorney didn't explain it to them. They have no idea. And so what I do is educate people before I even take you on as a client, because I want you to know what you're getting yourself involved in. It's very important. I have this pamphlet out front about estate planning and trust. I suggest that you try to pick up one before you leave, because it does give you a lot of information about estate planning and goes into detail. So those are three things: how to find an attorney, how to talk to one, and lack of access. Okay.
Thank you for that. Now, Jamal, for you, in terms of community investment, I mean, we've been talking a lot about that today. What role can institutions play in supporting local entrepreneurs and small businesses in Harlem?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first part is creating local partnerships. A lot of times when you have these partnerships, you get exposed to different types of information, you get exposed to different types of people, and that's essentially the access that we're talking about that we all need, right? Supporting grants. So a lot of these Fortune 90, Fortune 100 companies, they have a lot of money to give, and when there's a cause to give it to, who do we want to give it to, right? And once we have these partnerships with these Fortune 100 companies and corporate American companies, now we can take advantage of information that we never had access to. And I think that's really important, just because we're trying to debunk stereotypes, we're trying to debunk 400 years of history that essentially put us behind in some ways, right? Networking opportunities. I think I've always been told is not what you know, it's who you know. And a quote that I've always learned by and I've always not prided myself on, but just heard and has always stuck with me is, I don't have any children, but the biggest part is not what you essentially giving your children, it's teaching children information that you never had access to. So once you give that information, once you're able to communicate, build networks, build a team around you, now just different opportunities just fall into your lap, just being at the right place and at the right time. So just that access, and I think that's a part of the bigger part.
Absolutely. And I think another thing to add to that, right, it's, is there any business with the financial institution they talk about for the community or partnering, you have to see what they're actually doing, like where they're putting, are they putting where the money where the mouth is, right? So one of the unique things about Northwestern Mutual, which is why I've been here for the last 10 years, is they have a task force called Sustained Action for Racial Equity. And that's how he had the office opened up. They gave us over $1 million of investments to open up an office, to get a 10-year lease, to give us funds to be able to put something like this together. So make sure whenever you're doing business with an institution, how are they supporting the community rather than just doing all lip service. So I think that's very important, because at the end of the day, what really matters is the dollars and cents. And if you don't speak up, then the company will do whatever they're going to do at the end of the day, right? And so, I think the next piece here, I'd like to just share this with all the panelists, and feel free to answer, in order. So I guess, and feel free, anyone can take a stab at this question. What do we feel like are some of the biggest barriers to economic development in communities such as Harlem, and then how do you think they can be overcome?
I'll go first. In a way, sometimes I feel like we are our own worst enemy. I don't want to sound like I'm lecturing, but we really do need to invest in each other as well as investing in ourselves. Support, invest, use which word you want. But one of our businesses is currently going through a challenge, and they're going to do a crowdfunding. So are we going to drop that $50 or $100 or $500 out for them? So yeah, that's what I would say in answering that question. That we need to support each other. This is an art gallery. The reason it's an art gallery is because at one point in my life I was buying art, and it had to be original art. I don't own a print. We need to start buying, we need to buy art. We need to buy the art. There's a person behind each one of these pieces who's trying to express themselves and make a living. And if we have wall space and we can afford it, and art comes in all different sizes and prices, we should think about it.
Yeah, I would say to pick up on that, I think a lot of it is just the misconceptions around what a financial advisor does. Just from connecting with my clients, a lot of times we don't know essentially what financial advisors do. So essentially there's a barrier between connecting with a financial planner. So once you have somebody that you can trust, understanding and asking questions, I think that's the biggest thing, asking a lot of questions around it, just because, like I said, awareness is a really big thing, and resources. So with us not having information of the sort and being able to say, hey, I know that I have to get better financially, but where do I go to? What we tend to find now is a lot of people go to social media, and social media is a great place to get a ton of information, but it's always not that accurate for your particular situation. There's a lot of blanket information, right? So we hear all the time, like, I was told to open up this account, and I'm like, well, what is your goal around this account? What are you gonna do with this account? Oh, I just heard, somebody said that's how the Rockefellers got rich. Well, we're talking about billions of dollars that we never really had, right? So now just understanding the awareness about it, being able to understand that social media are not licensed people when it comes to financial planning and making sure that you have that plan. But I think the biggest thing is once you connect with a financial planner and somebody who's knowledgeable within the spaces, aligning your goals for what you want to do in life, and bridging that gap from where you want to be versus where you're looking to go. Yeah.
For me, I think creating generational wealth would be helpful in building a community. The money or the assets stay within the family, or that family may decide that they will create a charitable trust or organization where they can pass the money outside of the family. So there are different ways in which to create generational wealth within our community. And I'll talk about trust later, not now. That's the big thing now in estate planning. It is a legal document that transfers assets, similar to a will, okay? But a trust allows you to transfer those assets without going to probate or court. Upon your death, the property is distributed by the trustee, and that's it. So, and it's a private document, you don't have to disclose it, it's not public, and you can avoid paying a lot of money to transfer your assets, or the children of or the beneficiaries or heirs of a will have to go through probate and go through at least a year and a half of trying to get to those assets, whereas a trust assets pass immediately. So creating a plan that allows you to pass your assets to the next generation. That's what
Okay, thanks for that. And as you were thinking about the generational wealth piece, right? I'm not sure if anybody's ever read this before, or seen it somewhere. They talk about if you were to create generational wealth, you pass it up to the next generation. They'll do okay with it. The next generation has to lose it all. And so, Jeanna, I want to know if you've experienced any of that, or if anything, how do we avoid passing it off, and then after that, you pass it off to another generation, they lose it all.
Sure. What we do normally in trust is we create credit shelters, which prevents the creditors from going after the assets, because a beneficiary or child may be ruthless or not good with money. So that credit shelter protects the grantor's money to the child who's not financially savvy, I'll put it that way. So, and there are other ways too. You don't give control to that particular child. There are ways to get around that. Creating an LLC, you don't give that child management opportunities. That child just has an interest in the LLC, and that's it. The management goes to someone to a child who's much more savvy. And I can't think of any other ways, but the most thing is all the trusts should have a credit shelter provision. Not all of them, but if the attorney is doing the job, that's what they would put in there, a credit shelter. And you distribute assets according to, make sure that you don't give that child that finances that they can't handle, okay?
Exactly. And I think another thing too to add to that, outside of the technical parts of estate planning, trust wills, credit shelters, etc., you gotta want to pass off values and vision and create rules. Because if you can pass off the values, work ethic, ways how to go about doing things, then that next generation can go ahead and take that example, $1 million, turn it to 1.5, and teach the other generation that turn that 1.5 to 2 and whatnot. So listen, y'all, so I don't want this entire discussion to be us talking at y'all. I do want it to be an open dialogue here, so I'd love to just open up the floor for questions to the crowd. Again, we have a real estate owner, we have an art gallery owner, a financial advisor, and estate planning attorney here. So feel free to ask questions. I think the goal here is not only to connect, eat good food and look at some good art, but I think the goal here is to learn and maybe take one or two things where you can take at home and execute on. So.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Tyker Brooks. I'm one of the advisors on the team here at the event today. But I'm so sorry, I couldn't remember your name. Could you remember your name?
Jeanna Hussey. Most people remember the last one, Hussey. Okay.
I'm looking for the South, so can I put a miss in front of that, Jeanna?
I'm I'm sorry?
I'm from the South, man. Please put a missing from that Jeanna.
I'm from North Carolina.
I grew up Rocky Mountain, so I'm familiar.
I'm from Kinston.
Look at that. All right. So, Regina, thinking about estate planning, I always say all the time, a lot of people don't really know what estate planning entails.
Mhm.
So when you think about trustees or trust wills, things of that nature, how should a person go about selecting a trustee?
That's a good question because usually families select someone within the family. But unfortunately, if you select a family member as the trustee to distribute the assets, first of all, a trust has a grantor, that's the person who owns the assets, and it has a trustee. The trustee is responsible for distributing the assets. Okay, and then you have the beneficiaries in the trust. Okay? So, back to your question. Okay, how do you select the trustees? You've got to be careful in terms of you want someone who is going to carry out your wishes. The person doesn't have to be a professional, such as an attorney or accountant, but that's good if you do have one. It's just because a trustee can hire an attorney or an accountant to carry out the terms of the trust. There's another person or part two is a trust protector. That trust protector is over the entire trust and over the trustee. The trust protector can terminate the trust. If the laws change, you may have to terminate it. The trustee can fire the trustees. The trust protector can also, they're there to protect the terms of the trust, everything. So you want some, and for that person, you may want to get an accountant, financial planner, or another attorney. But just because the person is an attorney doesn't mean they know how to administer a trust. They have to have some experience in it, okay?
One follow-up, I'm just shut them out. The second question is, part two is, whenever we have documents, legal documents, things of that nature, we have beneficiaries on 401ks, beneficiaries on anything. Can a will or trust overpower the beneficiaries already stated on, per se, my workplace 401k?
Okay, so with 401ks, qualified plans usually set up a retirement trust because there's a time period in which you can withdraw funds from that plan. There's usually a 5-year period. But if you set up a retirement trust, then the period can be extended for 10 years. There's certain persons who can withdraw from that retirement account over a lifetime, usually the spouse, a disabled child, sibling that's within the 10-year period of the owner. But the best way to transfer monies from or transfer retirement accounts is through a retirement trust. Now, rolling over, you can do that, but that's not my area. So I leave that to financial advisors from rolling over to a Roth IRA. But if you want to transfer assets to your beneficiaries, then retirement trust is the best way to go. And you have to understand, people in the past they made a lot of money with their qualified pension plans, and that created wealth for the next generation and created dynasties as a result of those retirement trusts. So the federal government stopped that by limiting the time in which you can withdraw monies from a retirement account. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have one, no, by all means. It's just that once the monies are distributed through from the retirement account, you have to pay taxes on it. That's another issue. And if you don't if you don't assign it to a trust and you get an outright distribution, and that your person or grantor may have like $500,000 in it, you're going to pay taxes on that amount. Okay? But if you extend it over a period of time, then you can use those monies or find ways to decrease the income tax to you. Okay? You can do it for investments or whatever. Okay? Did I answer your question? Okay, good.
Set an appointment up, like Gary. I got a lot of questions.
Listen.
Go ahead.
Listen to the crowd.
Go ahead.
I'm joking. Anybody have any other questions?
I have a question. Thank you again for gracing us with this wonderful presentation. My question is, what would be a difference between a trust and a will? What would you recommend based on your experience?
Good question, because in the past, we only knew about wills, and I leave X, Y, and Z to Amy, Jeanna, and whomever. And then you file that document with the county clerk's office, and then upon the death of the person whose property it is, then it has to go through what we call probate. You have to pay fees, administration fees, and it depends upon the size of the estate as to what the fees are. Then you have to publish in the newspaper the death of the person, because the creditors must have a stake in that, may have a stake in that estate. So they have to be advised of the death of what we call the testator. Then you have to do a family tree. The family tree is finding all the heirs who can take or who are eligible to take. And then there's some other requirements. So that all takes time, lots of time. So I said, at least the property doesn't transfer at least for a year and a half. And most of when you left this kind of money, the beneficiaries may not have money to hire an attorney or transact all of this. With a trust, all that is eliminated because the grantor is going to pay up front for the cost of the trust. Okay? They're going to finance it. And so, as I said before, a trust is similar to a will. It's a legal document that transfers the assets. The trust can be named beneficiary of the assets. So upon the death of who we call grantor, settlor, trustor, then the trustee distributes those assets according to the terms and the wishes of the grantor. Okay, that's the simple explanation of it. It does not have to be disclosed to the beneficiaries, doesn't have to be disclosed to anyone if the grantor doesn't want it. Upon death, and it can have a no contest clause in it too, so if anyone doesn't like what their mother or father did, they can't contest it because they will not inherit. Okay, and you can disinherit someone in a trust, just like a will. But the best part is that the beneficiaries don't have to pay for the cost of the transfer of the assets, which they may not have. The trustor, the grantor, pays for that all up front. So yes, it's an expensive document, I'll say that. But you can't afford not to do it because your assets may fall into intestacy, that's state laws, and that law determines how the assets are transferred, or a will, which takes time for the beneficiaries to receive the assets. Okay, so, and you can always amend the trust.
We have a question over there.
Sorry. All right.
And they were fired.
My question is, can you transfer an asset prior to death? I mean, obviously, you could just give this stuff away, but I mean,
You can
I'm
gift
talking
it,
about,
yes.
I'm talking about, well, tax liabilities and those types of things. For instance, like putting your kid on the deed with the joint rights of survivor.
Well, you can do that, but there's something called an irrevocable trust, in which the asset remains in the trust until your death. You can transfer like property, a house or whatever, and place it in an irrevocable trust. And then upon the death of the grantor, then that house or whatever can be given to the child. One reason for irrevocable trust, other than transferring gifts during your lifetime, is what we call asset protection. We're living a long time, and so long-term care is expensive. Nursing homes can cost between $12,000 and $20,000 a year right now. When you get to that stage, it might probably will be double that. You can deplete all of your assets that you saved within a short time. So we use irrevocable trust to protect those assets because the government can place a lien on a house. It won't stop you from becoming eligible for Medicaid, but the government can reimburse itself by placing a lien on your property. Okay, so to avoid that, we put certain assets in an irrevocable trust. That protects it, but it has to be done within a certain time period. 5 years in New York, California, 5 years before you apply for Medicaid. Now you say, well, I'm not gonna need Medicaid. You will if you exhaust all of your money claiming for long-term care. As I said, $20,000 a month can add up. So, and don't think that the wealthy don't use this. They do. And that's how they preserve their assets to give it to the next generation so that they don't use it up paying for long-term care. Okay? So you have to be savvy with your estate plans and with your financing. Just don't think that, no, I don't need Medicaid. You will one day. Everybody will. Sorry.
What would you say the cost might be for an estate plan? We speak about the idea that it can be pricey and expensive.
I generally don't like to talk about fees in front of, because it depends upon how much work an attorney has to do. The baseline for a trust, I will tell you, is $4 grand. And some attorneys, you have to pay all costs up front. I don't do that because I know most of my clients can't afford that, so I do it in installments. But I tell them, I work as you pay me. So if you don't pay me, I don't give you the plan. Sorry. And so it's business. It's business. So there's another aspect too, insurance plans. I wanted to raise that issue too. We use insurance to pay for debt, when we die, or to pay off some debt that we've incurred. If you should need long-term care, Medicaid is only going to allow you $1,500 face value policy. Okay, so your $100,000 and $200,000 policies you're going to have to cash in. Yes, unless you put it in an insurance trust. Then that trust allows that insurance proceeds to pass to your beneficiaries. That's another irrevocable trust too. Okay, so there are ways to protect your assets, and the will does not do that.
I'm charging $1 for that one.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm charging $1 for that one.
It will. I'm just saying that's one trust. When you come to
That's intro.
Oh, it's way more than that. All right,
and it is because, as I said, if you have a lot of assets, that's not going. $4,000 is not going to cover it. No, because you have to fund what we call fund the trust. So after the trust is created, you've got to change the title of all of those assets. And that takes a long time. The retirement accounts, you've got to go, notify the principal administrator. You've got to, the insurance companies, let them know that there's a trust, and they want to see a copy of the trust. You send that to them. Transferring a house or real estate, you've got to change the title. So you have to go, I usually use a title company to do that. The deed has to be changed to indicate who the trust is the owner now of that property. The mortgage is fine. The property can have a mortgage on it, and you can still put it in a trust or transfer it to a trust. There's a law called St. Barney or something like that, but it prevents a due on sale clause from being used. So, for instance, if you put the house in a trust, then you think that the mortgage or the bank is going to call the entire loan to, you pay off the loan? No, you don't have to. You just have to notify the bank that the house is being transferred to the trust. That's it.
And we had another question.
I'd also like to thank you guys for doing this panel. I think it's really inspiring to see Black people in different fields giving us a word of advice and just inspiration. And I think we don't have enough of that being presented, so thank you. Similar to what one of the panelists were saying, we're in this information age, we're in social media, they're throwing so much financial advice to us, and a lot of people are misguided. If you were to step back in time and you had this advice that you know, like the things that you know now, what are some things you can tell to people that are financially lost or that want to create some type of wealth, like maybe one or two things anyone can provide to us?
Yeah, I'll take it from there. There's this book called Psychology of Money. You know, if you're an avid reader, definitely get the book. And the book just talks about the biggest way, the quickest way, or one of the best ways to build wealth. It's not going to be through a purchase of real estate. It's not going to be, no, listen, it's not going to be through a purchase of investments or stocks. The simple answer is your savings rate. It's your ability to save money. And so sometimes some people wait to have a reason to save. Right? I'm gonna save when I get to 30. I'm gonna save when my kid gets closer to X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna save when X, Y, and Z happens, when in reality the best time to save is today. Because when you save money, you then can have those dollars, one, compound in whatever investment you can then save to then buy the real estate. And then on top of that, if you save enough money, if you're saving just to save, then you have a lot of options, a lot of optionality. So let's say, you know, over the last few years, we've had many clients lose their jobs. And instead of them having to take the first thing that they can get their hands on or the first offer, they started denying offers. And like one of my clients, she's an attorney, successful, she's saving a lot of money with us, and she's been on a job for 2 years, not because she couldn't get a job, but because she didn't find what she wanted, and because of the fact that she saved the money, now she can take money from her investment accounts, relax, and in fact, because she saved, she actually started a business. You know, now she's an author and she's doing consulting because of the fact that she's simply saved. So I think that the biggest piece is just, it may sound counterintuitive, or maybe people don't want to hear this, but like save to save. I think the thing about social media, you know, you got people taking pictures and then going on vacation. You know, people buying nice things, and so now you see in social media is a highlight of people's lives, but that also does influence other people, because then someone might say, no, I want to go on vacation. I want to buy this, and they might just go on opting for that vacation, but not necessarily save, because no one's, saving isn't popular. You know what I'm saying? Putting money away in delaying gratification is not fun, but I just think from my perspective, just increase your savings, because the more you can save, you know, the better off. Like, even shout out to my mom. I remember, you know, my mom's right there. I remember, she's a great saver, and I remember when I signed up to go to school for my first semester, you know, I had a bill, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay this bill. I'm 19, but mom's like, Anthony, here you go. I'm like, Mom, where did you get the, I'm saving it. I was like, oh, okay, great. Right? So I think the biggest piece is saving those funds, and we can obviously have a whole session on how much to save, how to save, etc. But I just think the concept is just save, right? And if you want to get some more insight on the thing that I talked about, the book is named Psychology of Money. Check it out. It's a really good book. It'll open your eyes.
I think another thing to add to that is really undervalued is that it is okay. Like wherever you're at, it is okay. You know, especially in our community, I think we are a lot harder on ourselves than most when we do make a mistake or when we're not where we feel like where we're supposed to be. And I've become a firm believer that you're exactly where you need to be. And so anybody that's saved to $1 million, they have to get to 100, then to 1,000, then to 100,000. And so just understanding where you are, understanding where you want to go, and knowing that it's going to take time. Because when you're hard on yourself, you never start. And if you never start, you're never going to continue to go. So something I think is really undervalued.
Ms. Maria, I have a quick question for you as well. What's the name right, Ms. Maria?
Maria.
Maria, Ms. Maria, I'm so sorry. Ms. Maria, a lot of us here, I know you're probably going to ask this question. Home ownership and real estate investing is perhaps one of the most popular, if not the most popular way that we think that we have to build wealth. Now, I'm a big fan of real estate, but I know living in New York, buying real estate is very hard. So my question for you is, how important do you think group economics is specifically for real estate these days?
Group economics.
Meaning coming together with other people to purchase real estate, not in a syndicate format, but let's say myself and my brother here, I got 100,000, he got 100,000, we know we got to put $200,000 down on a property in the Bronx just that we have multifamily. How important, do you think is that where New York real estate is going altogether? Or do you think people can still purchase real estate as individuals? Specifically New York.
I have never, no. Oh, no, twice. Usually, there are multiple people in a real estate transaction on either side, the buyer or the seller side. It's not always individuals. So I think it's a great idea to join forces, as long as you guys get along. And you know, you have to think about wealth. For instance, we bought in 1987, when nobody wanted these things. I have neighbors who paid $25,000 for their house, and they sold it at $3.5 million. So, but Harlem is not the only spot. You know, I called Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights. I called the South Bronx. You know, my next call would be Baltimore.
It's still Baltimore. It's next up though.
Yeah, exactly. It's next up.
You know, I mean, I see Baltimore as the next Harlem. It's just, it's gonna happen. And I did some investigating down there, and I looked around and I looked at the highways and the transportation, and I mean, the spot that is the most bombed out is right on, you know, it's right there. It's right there. You can catch the bus, you can jump on the highway. It's like, oh, look. So, and they're pretty much giving houses away the same way they used to give them away in Harlem. So, you know, I mean, another way of building wealth is to buy low and sell high. That's what happens.
Sorry. Usually when those things happen, where there's you're giving a house away, don't they want you to have some type of like proof of like you can actually fix the house up or do something with it?
Well, that's what savings comes from.
Save that money.
You know, I mean, when it comes to construction, there's a whole thing that goes along with that, Khalid can tell you, but, you would typically get a loan. You're not gonna do a whole townhouse out of your own money, you know, so they usually want you to put down 25%, depending, you know. If it's a government program, they may even give you like, you know, 5%, 10%. Like there's a 203K loan that is for purchase and construction. And I think that's a federal thing. But then, you know, that's a whole conversation. Now we start talking about interest rates and what do you call that thing? It's like insurance. I can't remember what you call it. Well, mortgage. Funding?
Is that bonding?
No. On a mortgage, there's like a PMI, thank you. I hate PMI. I really do. You know, the less money you put down, the more they charge you, like insurance on your mortgage. So even if your interest rate is 3%, it turns out to be 4.5% by the time you put in the PMI. So there's all kinds of little to consider.
Absolutely. So I know the original question was, you know, we want each panelist to give 1 or 2 pieces of advice when it comes to building wealth. So I'd love to hear from Jamal, as it relates to some advice you can give to the crowd.
Related to building wealth?
Yeah, building wealth. That was your question.
I think we talk a lot about this declines to 4 buckets of wealth. And I tell people this all the time, whether they work with me or they don't work with me, this is a concept that goes a long way. So when you think about the 4 buckets of wealth, and we think about this idea of protecting what you're building, efficiently paying down debt, but also growing your money. The 4 buckets of wealth is just talking about what goals you have. So when you think about bucket number 1, this is essentially goals that you have within the next 2 years. So let's think about how we want to save for goals within the next 2 years, right? That's going to be an emergency fund, savings account, but every bucket has a pro and a con, right? So bucket number 1, the pros of this, you can actually access it whenever you want to. So you're fairly liquid, you have that money easily accessible to you, but now the cons of this, saving it in the savings account, traditional savings account, you're getting 0% interest. So when you think about this idea of inflation, if you have an account that's growing at 0% and inflation is at 3 or 4%, naturally your money is losing its value. Right? So then we think about bucket number 2, these are typically goals you have within the next 5 years. And the way you want to think about saving for goals in the next 5 years is investing that money, right? Whether that's mutual funds and thinking about the historic rates of the stock market, S&P 500, they're gonna give you 7 to 10% for the most part, you're conservative, right? But the con of bucket number 2 or investing money is your money's on an up or swing roller coaster. You don't know essentially when the market's gonna go up, when the market's gonna go down. Bucket number 3 is essentially more of your long-term bucket, so dollars you want to access before retirement, enter retirement, and this is kind of like a hedge on when the market goes down. So having some form of safety, but also tax efficiency. How can I make sure that I'm taking out money tax-free? How can I tap into it without having to pay a huge tax bill, right? Some examples are equity within a home, utilizing different insurance plans, and then you have retirement, so you can't touch this money until 59 and a half, right? That's a con. People typically, and it's funny because I spoke to my cousin this weekend, and he was like, yeah, you know, I put $30,000 away from my 401k. I was like, that's probably the worst thing you want to do. Oh, but I heard this on social media. You're wrong. How you gonna tell me I'm right? I took my exams for a reason. But understanding that each bucket, you want to put money into each bucket, and it's, as Mo said earlier, pretty much have to start where you're at. You're not going to put money into all 4 buckets at the same time, but how can you get there over time? So that's just a concept that we typically talk to a lot of our clients about as it relates to growing money. So.
Yes, for me, it's just creating an estate plan that transfers the wealth that you created to the next generation. And I know this is a segue, Anthony, but I also want to let you know that there are 3 other documents that you should have in your estate plans. That's a power of attorney, a living will, and a healthcare proxy. That power of attorney is important because if you become incapacitated, have an accident, and you can't transact any of your business, you have an agent who can transact that business on your behalf. You just have to make sure that you choose someone that you trust, because they will have access to your bank accounts and everything and can wipe you out, okay? So you need to have someone that you trust. And so, because if you don't and you become incapacitated, your family has to go into court in order to have the court assign someone as your guardian over you. And that's costly, at least $6,000 or whatever, okay, and it can go on. But the power of attorney is a simple document that allows that person, an agent, to transact business on your behalf. A healthcare proxy allows someone to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. And this is something that most people don't know. You can nominate a disability panel, a group of people who can determine whether you're incapacitated or not with certain standards or whatever, or criteria. But normal, usual healthcare proxy, that person can make the healthcare decisions for you, and a living will, which is a do not resuscitate order. Meaning if you become in a vegetative state, do you want to be revived or whatever? Most people don't, and then if they do, then you have to put in that document the circumstances of when, like wait, and I'm being crude about this, but don't pull the plug for 10 days or whatever, okay? So, but those terms can be added in there. Okay.
Into your trust, into what you think.
A living will.
Living will.
Yes, and it's called living will, but it's a do not resuscitate order. Okay.
Awesome. So listen, y'all, we could probably stay here for another 3 hours and talk with y'all about this. In fact, we could probably have a whole session on each specific topic if we wanted to. We get real complex. I just want to give the hands up for the panelists. I'm gonna pass it off. We'll wrap up tonight's program. But again, y'all, thank you for coming through. This is the Northwestern Mutual's first event in Harlem. We'll have more programming over time. So if you subscribe via the Posh VIP, we'll be sending out emails. And so, looking forward to continue having this conversation, because in order for us to really make progress, we need to have consistent discussions. It can't just be something we have once per year, maybe twice per year. It has to be at least 4 times. It has to be ongoing conversation. In fact, I think this is my 3rd time here. Last time it was art and real estate. Now we're talking about estate planning, art, financial planning. So we got to keep going. So thank y'all for coming through.
And one more thing, if you are interested in the career, this is the end of the show remarks. If you're interested in the career and want to learn more about the advising, how you can go about it, if it's the right fit for you, don't hesitate to connect with Anthony or myself. Love to share more about the opportunity, because like Anthony mentioned, this career is based off of trust, and the work that we do is based off of trust, and the more people that do what we do, the faster we can move this ball upstream. But thank everybody for coming out.
And I have some more brochures if you would want, if you didn't get one.
Thank you. So,
Hawker fans in here, y'all know we put the best of it in. Cause we were trying to make sure y'all paying attention. I saw y'all taking notes too. So I know y'all were. If y'all are interested, and if y'all are willing, we've talked about these pathways to economic prosperity. Wait, I'm gonna just emphasize that plug. Y'all, he said if y'all don't want to take the pathways that they are suggesting, y'all could also just join him on the front lines in creating those economic pathways. Y'all heard that, right?
Yeah.
And listen,
Y'all heard that, right?
Yes.
and here's the thing, it doesn't have to be you, but if you know someone else that would be a good fit for this type of role, like we need more people who look like us in the space. Because I can't tell you how many times I speak to our clients. Like Anthony, I spoke to somebody, Joe Schmo down the street, that didn't look like him, even though what that other person told them what to do made sense. They did not pull the trigger because there was no element of trust. So we need people who look like us in this space, which is why we are here in Harlem. Right, and the goal is to eventually expand to the Bronx, where I'm originally from. But like you said, path to prosperity. I like that. Thanks for emphasizing that.
I will. I'll keep doing it. I will, and I'm gonna keep doing it because the name of this exhibition is Liberation Front. There's when I zoom out to talk about my work most professionally to help people understand all the different hats that I wear, all the different worlds that I pull together. It's called cultural architecture, right? There's a difference between being creative and doing community development and actually building a culture within a community. And I don't just mean like this idea of like, you know, we're in the culture and they appropriating culture. I mean like the same way we talk about families, organizations, and us having those habits of excellence, those habits of passing down our knowledge and understanding how to protect and keep ours, right? I got a little treat for y'all, just for sticking in with this commercial. One of the artists that is soon to be exhibited in the Liberation Front has just walked in and has asked if y'all are interested. I can tell him no and to go home, but he wants to play a few songs for y'all on the piano if that's okay.
Sure.
So we have Daniel West Foster coming in here. A recent Harvard grad, anthropology, African American studies, a salt of the earth individual. The first time I met him was 2.5 weeks ago, and I was in here very late night in the gallery, moving around pieces, picking up stuff, sweeping, all the non-sexy, non-peaceful art stuff that y'all don't know about. Y'all think that we just sit here and meditate. This is great. Anyway, we were doing a job, and Daniel comes in like stumbled after a couple of days of walking past and noticing that we were closed. This particular night, the door was open, the lights were on, a little bit of music was playing, and as he walks in, he sees the piano, looks at us, and kind of, not even a full question, just kind of that telepathy we were talking about earlier, just looks at him like, yeah. And he sits down, and the rest is history. I told y'all I was a cultural architect, but I have a lot of jobs. I'm so sorry. As a curator, I'm trying my best to re-curate all of Harlem. And I'm starting right here. This is the front line. From now on, in the Harlem Renaissance, the second coming, it starts here with our multifaceted individuals, with our people that are talking about economic and generational wealth, and with our artists. They come in with a full understanding of who we are, where we come from, and how we can tell those stories to keep going. So without further ado, I'm gonna get the hell out of the way. I know y'all are tired of hearing from me, but if y'all have questions, I'm here. And I'm gonna give it to Daniel to give a little bit of an intro and then to do his thing.
Everybody, my name is Daniel. You can call me Wes. And then my stage name is Akindale. Also Akindale on TikTok and Instagram. AKINDEYAH. Akin means the strong one in the Yoruba language. And Dea means to be here, like kind of like the outside of Dea, right? So Akindale means like the strong one is here.